So I'm going to share with you how I plant my garlic. Now, you can see here, we've got our beautiful clove of garlic. Now, one clove equals one bulb next year. So remember that. We don't want to plant this whole big chunk in the ground. It's one clove, and that will turn into one of these. Now, the difference between planting garlic and onions is that you plant the garlic at 2.5 centimetres below the surface, whereas onions, you leave the tip wiggling out. So make sure you plant this below the surface. Another thing to think about is your biggest, fattest cloves are going to produce your biggest, fattest bulbs for next year. So I would select the big fat chunky ones, and then possibly these smaller ones. You can see the difference in size here. So that's a little piddler and that's a big whopper. That little piddler is going to give you a piddly little garlic for next year. So I really would only be planting my big fat ones. And then what I try to do before I actually plant is line them all up. Now you can see behind me here, I'm probably leaving a wider gap between my garlic than you would do if you were only planting garlic in the bed. But my thing is I want to get maximum crop out of my bed. So now, obviously these are all growing at the moment. I've got my chard here, I've got my chicories, and then I'm going to be planting my garlic in between those, because what will happen is through the winter months, these might die off. And then once they have died off, this will then come through the ground and be standing strong for those winter months. The other thing I will then do is make sure I've got enough space to grow my second crop in the middle of this. So say for example, in the middle of my garlic rows, I might be growing some carrots. Carrots are fantastic to grow between your garlic because it acts as a companion plant. So your garlic, the smell of it will ward off the smell of the carrots, because carrot root fly, if you get that in your area, the carrot root fly is actually attracted to the smell of the carrots. So when you're planting your garlic in between, all those pests get really, really confused, and then they can't find where the carrots are. Before we get planting our garlic, I like to place it in the beds just to make sure I can visually, A, I know that I've got enough garlic for a row, and B, I can kind of visualise how it's going to look for next year. You might have bought some cloves from the garden centre. Some of them might be rotten, and I've got quite a few over there that have rotted, and I won't be planting any cloves that have got any sign of rot on them. I will only be planting my big, fat, juicy cloves. So I've got a stick here, which is cut to 20 centimetres. Now, this just saves me measuring. It's just a really quick and easy way of measuring the spacing between my holes. So I'm going to start off with one here, and then I'm going to space with my stick for the next one, and so on and so forth. So then you kind of can gauge how the bed's going to look, and you can see here I've already done this one. So I always do this before I plant. I also make sure that I do it with plug plants as well, because there's nothing worse than starting to plant everything out and you get to the end of the row and you realise you're 4 short. If you are 4 short, then you can adjust the spacing. So I'm planting these at 20 centimetres apart, and then I'm leaving about 40 centimetres between rows. Usually you could get away with about 30 centimetres, but because I know I want to be growing carrots in between my garlic and also lettuces for lettuce heads, I want to make sure that I've got enough space between my garlic to really maximise the potential of the space in between crops. So I'm continuing on with spacing my garlic. Now this is quite good because I've definitely got enough. And there we go, that little one there, and there's just enough space for one more. And then I've got 3 left, so not quite sure where I'm going to put them. But what I might do is put these into modules, just in case one rots off. I can put these into the greenhouse, so I've always got a fail-safe backup. So I'll put them into little module pots, which I will try and show you later on. And then if anything doesn't work, bish bosh bash, I can put another one in there. So now I've lined them up and I can visually see that we've got enough for the rows. Let's get planting. When you're planting your garlic, slightly different to onions, you need to make sure that your garlic is 2.5 centimetres below the surface. So when you're making your hole, kind of bear that in mind. It needs to be deep enough so the tip is 2.5 centimetres below. So we're just going to make a little hole, drop it in. And again, I generally don't cover them up at first because you then kind of get a bit lost and you don't know where everything is. So I like to leave them with the tips pointing out so you can kind of see where everything is. So gently just pop there. And also another thing, just to show you what is the top and what is the bottom. So you can see here we have your clove. Now the tip has usually got kind of like a little wispy bit, and then the bottom is kind of a knobbledy bit. So you always want to make sure that it's pointing upwards. Let's see if I can get another. There's like a little, you can see here, a little floppy bit there, and then you've got the bottom, which is usually a little bit flat. So when the clove comes, they're sitting like this. Make sure the tip is pointing up. And then we're going to push that into the soil. On another one, just there.
You then just need to cover them up,
down the row.
Press them down and give them a water to settle them in.
So there we have it. Planting garlic is literally that easy. You wallop it in the ground. Don't worry about the frost. Don't worry about the cold. It actually benefits the garlic if we get a little bit of a cold snap. This is going to bumble along all winter long, and come next year you are going to have a bumper harvest of garlic. And if you remember to save the biggest, fattest cloves to plant at the end of the year, then you will never have to buy garlic ever again. I'm going to be sharing with you in some videos shortly how to grow elephant garlic. Now check this out. This is the beast of all beasts. So subscribe and you'll be able to join in the fun of planting the world's most whopping garlic. Look at the size of that clove. Look forward to sharing a few more tips with you over the next few months.